This is Roger Simon.
And Lionel Chaplin.
Welcome back to Poliwood, and we welcome my old friend Paul Witt with us, taking this opportunity to ask a few more questions of Paul about his fantastic career in television. So, Paul, welcome back to Poliwood.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. What was the first series that you exec prodded and started on?
The first series I executive produced was for Danny Thomas Productions. I had started at Screen Gems, moved to Spelling Goldberg, and then worked under Danny Thomas, which was an enlightening and extraordinary experience. And then Tony and I decided that we wanted to start our own company. One of the first writers we hired was a woman named Susan Harris, who eventually became my wife. And we had made one pilot together, the three of us, that did not sell. Then we did a series that did sell with Lee Grant called Faye, but that only lasted one season and was rather heartbreaking.
She was very bitter, as I recall, when that was canceled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. You got a great
memory. I'm interested in that. I mean, because this is a different time. When you listen to you talk, I worked for Spelling Goldberg. I went here. I went there. That was a time when you actually, these were studios in a real sense, and you worked for the studio, and they had enormous power. And I remember that with Lee Grant, absolutely furious that she was canceled without being told. Is that right? As I recall. I mean, it was a different. I'm really trying to get at the relationship that you had then with your performers.
Well, Tony, Susan, and I were called into a meeting at NBC, and we thought we were there either for development reasons or a pickup, and we were canceled. Susan was most demonstrative in the room. I don't think anyone there will ever forget her reaction.
Oh, they canceled you face to face, not the usual Hollywood way of on the phone
They did it face to face.
Through your agent or whatever.
Lee had been
Who's the executive? Just out of interest. It's inside baseball.
This is definitely inside.
Never mind.
Not even Paul can remember.
No, Marvin Antonowski.
There's a name
Marvin,
that 12 people will remember.
Marvin was the focus of most of the ire. And then Lee Grant was doing The Tonight Show by coincidence that night, thinking she was going to be able to promote her show. Instead, she gave a one-fingered salute, as I recall, to Marvin. Yeah, we were all upset. You're a family when you do a show. You spend so much time together, as you both know, and you put your heart and soul into it and a great deal of effort, and when it's canceled, it's more than just a rejection. It's real pain.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're set. I remember we were at a shooting at Paramount. Susan went in the next day to kind of say goodbye to the set, and it was gone already. It had been struck. It's cold. And it's
you went from there to soap, right? Which was, I mean, that was a groundbreaker. Did you determine going? I mean, you did things no one had done. Billy Crystal was gay, as I recall. It was an extraordinary. I mean, how did you come to that premise?
We all felt constricted by the 23 minutes and 30-second storytelling ABC story form, and so we wanted to do a comedy with a continuing storyline and soap opera without really doing a send-up. We didn't want to do a satire of soaps, but we wanted that form. We wanted that storytelling freedom. When things work, we could keep it running for 2 or 3 seasons. If it didn't, we could find a graceful way to end it quickly. We also, it wasn't about breaking rules, but it really was about creative freedom. And we see where television has moved, sometimes for the better, for it. None of what we did by contemporary standards seems particularly far out, other than
it was huge.
Other than
what were some of the things you did back then with soap that were
well, we had a gay character, which just hadn't been seen before.
Hadn't been done.
And we had
Infidelities,
women. We had women with unfaithful husbands who were unfaithful themselves.
Who were not victims, but in fact became aggressive. Yeah, I mean, it was a liberated show. In its own way, very groundbreaking. But I think also to leap to the elephant in the room, which was Golden Girls. When I first heard of that, I said, well, I want to be in the room. When I heard that was pitched, 4 elderly ladies. That's never good. I mean, that's That's going to close. That's going to close in the first commercial break.
Yeah.
And yet, it's iconic.
Of course, the Sunshine Boys were earlier than. Yeah. So there had been a little bit of inkling of these elderly
but to
comics.
a degree, that's the Broadway demographic.
Which is older.
The television demographic has always been about young audiences.
Right. So how did you get it? How did Golden Girls then come about? Because that's probably your biggest hit. No?
Yeah, NBC at an affiliates convention in Miami, two of older female performers had a little skit written for them about they thought Miami Vice was Miami Nice, and everyone laughed.
Right.
And so the NBC development staff, I was in with another writer for another meeting, and said, yeah, we don't like that so much, but this thing happened in Miami. You think there's anything? And the guy that we came in with said, I don't want to write old ladies.
Mistake one.
And he left, and I said, I think I know someone. And of course they knew I was speaking of Susan.
Right.
Susan just leapt at this because women of a certain age, as they were called then, have so much to say.
Yeah.
They've lived so much. Their experience is so much deeper.
And so much less to lose by saying
right.
it.
And we were also able to create that terribly important television fantasy of a reconstructed family. So whether it's Friends or whether it's The Office or whatever it is, it's about family to one degree or another. And we all have a fear of being old and alone. And here were these four women who were anything but alone.
Right.
And so there was joy all the way around. And Susan is brilliant. And we were able to surround her with great young writers. It was just an extraordinary amount of fun.
You said earlier that Christopher Lloyd sort of began his long journey there. One of the great figures.
And Mark Cherry.
Mark Cherry, Desperate Housewives of Mark Cherry.
And Mitch Hurwitz. I mean, we had an extraordinary staff, and these women could deliver. You know, B. Arthur was capable
of doing anything.
We could, Susan or anyone could write, a wonderful joke for Betty White or Rue McClanahan. You could always cut to B, who was one of the great comedy reactors of all time, doing almost nothing. Cut to B and get a second laugh.
Sure.
Just on her, staring.
With a slight eye movement or something.
Right.
You were telling me earlier that I've seen it actually with my own 13-year-old daughter, that Golden Girls is now having a second life. How is that working? How does that happen?
Well, it never went away in the sense that the moment we were finished, we had a really nice syndication sale, and it did very well in syndication.
What was the year that it finished?
Mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
Yeah. We were doing really well, but what confounded the pundits was that the demographic they thought would be mostly female, mostly 49 and above. Right. And we had one of the youngest demographics on those particular outlets. Kids loved the show, college kids loved the show, and they still do. And so now, all these years later, it still does extraordinarily well, and it's still very, very important to the people who watch it. And a lot of people watch it regularly. They invite these women into their home, some people every day. And the DVD sales have been terrific. They're important figures that have come out of television and been embraced by the public, and it's a thrill.
Yeah, I bet it is. How does it feel now to be like, sort of like the grandfather of this thing? It goes on and on. It may transcend you.
Every once in a while, I'll either catch it because I'm channel surfing, or I'll think of something and put on a DVD. And I'm stunned at how funny it was, how brilliant the women, stunned anew. The quality of the writing, and we actually said things. The juxtaposition of brilliant comedy and great performances with real issues that these women faced also distinguished the show, and are still important today.
I think part of his magic was the idea that there's a life after life in which you're free. These women, because of who they were, where they were, and the situation, the premise in which you put them, the world in which they populated, they're free to say whatever they wanted, think whatever they wanted.
And be what they
it's
want,
worth getting older folks because there's freedom at the end of the night. And I think that's very promising to young people who are constrained. But you know about young people. I got to do it. Anything you want to say about the Partridge Family?
Yeah, the next year I got to do Brian's song.
There you are. With Bill Blinn, one of the great writers.
Absolutely, he certainly is.
What do you feel now about working, the differences between working in TV and features?
It's changed so radically. As we've discussed privately, trying to get something made as a film that's about something, as against effects and size and action, is getting more and more difficult. Television, on the other hand, is allowing greater creative freedom and more creative expression than it ever has before because of off-network television. So there are more people moving back and forth, and I think the quality of writing on off-network television and network television, because it's raised the bar for everyone, is probably better than it's ever been.
Yeah, I agree with that. The creative process in television, which is still a producer-writer medium, outstrips what's happening in film. I think that's one of our problems with American film, is that which we talk about a lot.
But contemporary television is run by writer-producers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's still a writer-producer medium,
Yeah.
as opposed to kind of this solipsistic concentration on either the star or the director. People say it's a director's medium film, but it's a star. The star will decide who the director is and how long he's going to be on that set before they
And
throw
what
him
the
on.
script is.
And what the script is. And frequently, the thing, let me put this nicely, the qualities that might make you a very successful actor to the point of being a movie star are not necessarily the qualities that will help you make a good film. And in television, no, they're not. You know, that was Israel's one good line.
Look, we were having Paul on here. He was doing something, and now all of a sudden we're cynical again. Anyway,
it was good.
Anyway, this is Roger Simon.
And Lionel Chetwin.
Thanks again to Paul Witt for joining
Thank
us
you
on
for having
Poliwood.
me.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Next week in Poliwood.